Jack Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today I'm going to do a project for convenience, and that is I'm going to make a little holster for my belt to carry these pellets for hunting. So this will also work for a chew can, like if snuff. So it'll work the same way. This looks to be about the exact same size as that, but you could make your pattern for whatever size you want to carry. So I'm doing some small varmint hunting with a 22 air rifle, and that'll be coming up in another video fairly soon. But today we're going to make a little holster to carry my ammo. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, so I've already made my pattern, and I made it out of just poster board. This one just happens to be yellow. I think that day I went to go get some poster board. They didn't have any white, so I bought some yellow. So there's no specific reason why. And then I wanted to make this as simple as possible, putting it together. So I'm actually going to make this into a 3-part series. And I'm sure some people are saying, how in the world can you do that with that little project? Well, what I'm going to do is, what I'm actually going to be hunting most with this rifle is invasive iguanas in Florida. So I am going to, on the next video, I'll show you the finished product plain here. Then on the next video, I'm going to be doing some carving and tooling on this. And then on the third video, and I'll show you the finished product on step 2 in that video. Then on the third video, I'm going to paint this. So I'm going to use some acrylic paints, and hopefully this thing is going to really pop and really look sharp. So that's the 3 steps I'm going to do it in. Today we're going to take the pattern that I made, and all I did was make a round circle pattern for the back, like so. Left about 3/4 of an inch at the bottom to hold that together. Folded that over the thickness of the can. Then I made straps out here, and it was all just trial and error, and I did it on paper first because it was so much easier, and then transferred that to my pattern material. And then those wings, or tabs, whatever you want to call them, those wrap around on the back and cross over. If you can see that right here where they cross over, and there will be one hole through all 3 thicknesses of that leather. And I'm going to use Chicago screws so I can put it together and then take it apart if I need to, which I will, because I'm going to be doing some carving and tooling and painting on it. So then I left a tab. I made a built-in tab so it was one piece of leather that's going to fold over, and that's going to be, I'm going to put Chicago screws in the corners, and that's going to be my belt loop. So let me show you kind of what that looks like finished on the pattern. There's my belt loop. And that's, you can make that any size you want. You could leave it way up here so that it would just hang down a little bit. I want mine right on my belt, and I think it's going to make it real stable. So that's how I made my pattern. Now I'm going to transfer my pattern over to my leather. I've got some, I'd say 9 or 10 ounce veg tan here. I want, since I am going to do some carving and tooling on this, I want my best part of this leather on the part that I'm actually going to tool. So let me double check this and make sure that this is going to be the way I want it. Looks like I'm going to have to, I want this to be the finished side, so I'm going to want to cut my leather out like this with my pattern kind of upside down, so that when I fold that over, I'll have my finished side up. So this is a pretty good spot here. This is a pretty good spot. Let me look and see. Looks like this one's going to be the best. So let's go ahead, and I hate to waste a lot of this leather, but it's just to make it all in one piece, it's a strange pattern. So let me get this pattern drawn out or traced here on this leather. And the reason I cut that top off in the front is so that I could get a hold of the can. I could have covered the whole entire can, but the problem with that is then it would be an issue trying to grab a hold of it to get it out of there. And I want to have quick access to it for reloading. So I'm just going to trace that image. Notice I'm holding it down with several fingers, my thumb, with my other hand as I go around, so I don't get any movement on that pattern. I'm not in any hurry. So I've got my pattern traced. It gives you a pretty good look at it. And I do have a new blade in my knife, so I can go ahead and start cutting this out. Now I'm going to take a nice straight cut first, and I'm going to stop before I get to this point, this corner. Turn it around and go straight down in that corner and go the opposite way, so that I don't go too far and cut into my actual product. So I'll start in that corner again, come down, and I can get rid of that piece. Go back, and I can work my way around this corner until I get to the point to where I can do a straight cut again, right on that line. Right, straight across here. Then I can work on this other corner. Again, starting on the inside so I don't cut into my finished product. And then all I have to do is cut that corner off. And there's that tab. makes it nice, sharp, doesn't go into this piece of leather that I'm actually using. So let's go ahead and continue the same way on the top of those straps. And I keep turning my leather so that I continuously pull that knife toward me. And I keep it comfortably in my hand. And then each one of those points, those inside, or yeah, they're inside corners, I stop, turn my leather, and cut the other direction. So I stop before I get to that corner and turn it around and cut the other direction. And what that's going to do is give me a nice sharp corner and no miscutting on my product. And again, it helps if you have a really sharp blade in your knife. So there it is all the way to this point right here, that bottom section. Now I can start there and cut around the rounded part. And again, you can stop cutting, rotate your leather, make it comfortable for you. Stop before I get to that corner here. And I like to do multiple cuts on my outside corners, especially when they're tight, like this. When those outside corners are real tight, I like to use multiple cuts and finish that corner off so I get a nice, sharp, clean corner, and I'm cutting right on that mark. So I'll just cut straight across that line and just continue that. See how I've continued that straight across? Then I'll go back and cut that radius on that outside corner. And I'm using about 3 to 4 small cuts. And then I'll cut straight down that. If it's a little larger radius and I can comfortably cut around it, it's not a problem. Alright, so we get into the other inside here, flip it around, cut from that inside out, inside out. Again, now we're on this large radius circle. So we'll just continue around, not all the way, and then go back to the inside corner and cut back to that line. And there's a couple of spots I didn't get all the way through, but that's okay. I could go back and take that out. So there's the leather I have left over. there is my piece so far. And let's see, just one little spot here I need to clean up. There, there, and then these two ends on these tabs. And that's an outside radius again, so I can do my multiple cuts to make sure that I don't mess that up. It's much easier to do those in small straight cuts, and then you end up with this radius, and we can clean that up however we want. We'll go to the second one, do the same thing. And there's no specific number of cuts you need to make on those, just whatever you feel comfortable with to get you a good clean radius around there, and that's what you need to do. There's the second one. Alright, so we'll move all these scraps to the side here. I will take a small beveling tool. Make sure it's good and clean. Let me grab my strop and a little bit of jeweler's rouge here, and let's polish that up so it glides nice and smooth through there. See how nice and polished and shiny that is. So let's go ahead and let's just go through nice and easy. Go around the corners. Don't have to be in any hurry. I'm trying to do this in nice fluid motions so I keep it real nice and smooth. I want my edge as smooth as I can possibly get it, so I'll just keep rotating that piece and keep the same amount of pressure on that whole entire time, because the harder I push, the deeper that beveler is going to go. So I want to keep a constant amount of pressure on that beveler as I go around this piece. And if it feels like it's starting to drag, then take it off and strop it a couple more times, and that should make it glide real easy again. And I'm just going real slow, methodically, making sure that I'm getting a nice, clean, sharp bevel. And what I go by normally is to get rid of that ink mark that I put on there when I transferred my pattern onto my leather. I can flip it over, do the other side if that's what you want to do. And I think I'm just going to do a quick little burnishing. It's not super important on this project that it be perfect, but I would like for it to look nice, since I'm going to go to the trouble of doing a little bit of carving and tooling, and also doing the painting on it. So I do want it to look pretty nice. So I'll just go around the inside also. Continue around the outside. Again, if it feels like it's starting to drag on you, strop it a few times and go right back, and it'll make it just glide right through it. Again, the key I found, at least for me when I'm doing this, is the amount of pressure I'm putting on my tool. As long as I'm not pressing really hard and I'm just making sure that I'm making contact with that edge of that leather, I get a nice bevel. When I get in trouble is when I try to press too hard, put too much pressure on that. So let's do the same thing here. Let's clean this off. Get those pieces out of the way. Got a nice little scrap pile started here. So there's the piece cut out, beveled, and cut from our pattern. So now what we need to do, I'm going to put this up real quick. I don't need it anymore for this step. So let's just put it out of the way. Moisture can't get to that. And let's just do a quick little moistening of the edge. And when I say quick, I'm not going to put very much moisture on there at all. Now you can put slick stuff on there, a slicker or whatever you want to put on there, but I just normally use water, and that seems to do a pretty good job for me. So all I'm doing is moistening that edge. I don't want to get it soaked, just getting it damp very lightly in the corners. And I'm getting to the bevel also. So I'm letting the moisture cover the entire beveled area. And you notice I keep turning my sponge because my water keeps running. Because of gravity. Alright, so I've made it all the way around. And you can see I've got a little bit of moisture on the edges. See that? But that'll come right back around, and I'll moisten it. I'll case it when I get ready to do my carving. So it's going to end up being cased anyway. So it really doesn't matter. So I'll get my slicker tool here, a burnishing tool, and I'm going to use this one because I've got for the outside and the inside. So I've got a tool that I can use for these inside corners. So I think I'm going to start here at the top. I'll check it out and make sure it's ready. And I'm not pressing real hard, but I am using a lot of friction. And it's not quite ready. You can see where it's starting. See that right here? See where that's starting to shine? That means that's starting almost ready, and that just that little bit made that edge hard right there. So we'll give it a couple more minutes. And what I found is if you start too soon, more than likely, more than anything, you're going to end up flattening that edge out instead of making it nice and round and hard. It'll flatten that edge out a little bit. That did an excellent job right there. Again, it's the technique of the friction more than anything. And you'll be able to see that if you keep a close eye on it as you're working on it. You'll see if you're flattening that edge out, or if you're actually making it round and it's starting to get a shine on it. You'll be able to tell whether it's ready to work or not. So I'll just work my way around the outside edge, and that's shining up real nice. Go to the underneath side. And that's slicking up real nice. So that'll give me a nice professional finished edge there. And I can do it on the inside corners. And you could use a rotary tool if you wanted. Like I use a drill, and I've got a video out on that if you want to go back and take a look at that. It works really good, but on something this small that has a lot of radiuses to it, inside and outside, I'm not sure if that would really work that great. It would on these straight surfaces, but as far as the corners, the inside corners, it's not going to work so great. So that's why I decided to use the hand slicker or burnisher. And this piece is real easy to hold because you can just keep rotating it in your hand. As you can see, that's what I'm doing. Makes a real nice slick edge. corner, and you can see how shiny that is now? Real nice and slick and shiny. You just keep working your way around that edge, around that piece, till we get all those edges worked down the way you want them. Go around the outside of those straps. And then come back here and finish where I started. So there's my finished burnishing, and got some nice edges on there now. So the next thing I want to do is I want to mark it where I'm going to put my hardware. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I am going to do this with Chicago screws so I can take it apart, because I'm going to have to take it apart a couple of times during this series, because I'm doing the carving and the tooling and the painting. So this will make it really easy to take apart. So let's take a look at the Chicago screw. One end, the stud, has the threads inside, which is this one. And then the other end has a slotted cap or top, and it has the male threads on it. So we need a hole to fit the stud end that has the female threads. So we need a punch that's going to go through. Now, I want it fairly snug. I don't want it to slide up and down in there. This punch right here will go over the end of that stud. So that's the one I'm going to use. And that is a 3/16 punch. I'm going to clean it out. And these spoils, I'm surprised. I try to keep those cleaned out after every use, but sometimes I get in a hurry and put my tools away before I get it cleaned out. So there's that one cleaned out. Nice and clean now. You can see all the way through it. Now, what I need to do is I need to put my product on there, and I'm going to slide in there, pull that up to where that fits the way I want it to, like so. Then I'm going to wrap those straps around, and then I'm going to be able to make my marks where I want the Chicago screw to go. Now, I really would like to go through all three thicknesses here, So I'm going to pull up and pull those as tight as I can get them across there. Then I can mark. I'm just taking a stylus and putting a little mark there. That way I'll know where to put my punch for my Chicago screw. And then I'll punch those two tabs. Then I'll make a mark for the center. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a second. So let's go ahead and let's make a mark or make our hole. For our Chicago screw on both tabs. And there's one on one tab. There's the one on the other. Let's put this back on here. And it's a lot of dry fitting, making sure that we get this perfect. So we want to make sure that we pull that through just where we want it. Double check it. Make sure these fit and look correct, which they do. Then let's go ahead and make a mark on that back piece. Now we can go ahead and punch our hole there. So now we can take one Chicago screw. We'll put our stud from the inside because we don't need to hold that except with maybe our thumb. And let's put our tabs over the Chicago screw, the stud. Then let's go ahead and get us a screwdriver and let's start putting the male threads into the stud. And that's a weird angle I'm at there. And let's get that screwed in there. Now, because I'm going through 3 layers, that's really pulling it nice and tight. So that is not going to come out of there by any means, because it's going to have too much tension on it. We can slide our pellets in there, or whatever, chew, whatever you're going to use it for. And I've only used one fastener through 3 layers. So it's nice and snug, but yet I can reach down and pull those out off my belt. Nice fit. So the last thing I need to do is fold this over, and I would again normally use a probably a rivet, but I'm going to use a Chicago screw here also so I can take it apart. This is only going to go through 2 thicknesses for my belt loop. So let's go ahead and let's mark it with my stylus. and we'll punch it just like we did the other holes. Fold it back over. See where that's going to fall. And mark it. So that's where we're going to punch our hole right there. Now, you could do this a couple of different ways. You can go ahead and take this screw back out and punch it flat, or you can take, I've got a thicker poly cutting board here. I can actually stick that corner in there and punch that right on the corner without taking that apart. So there's my hole in the bottom of that section. So let's grab a Chicago screw. We'll put it in from the inside again. We'll put the stud in first. So I'll go inside, push the stud through, fold the back over that stud, and then put on the actual screw. Now, I could have done two, one here and one here, one here and one here, but I think one will hold it just fine. You're not talking about that much weight. So I'm trying to use as little hardware as possible. So there's the Chicago screw on that side. So that gives me my belt loop here. And I don't have a belt handy, but I do have the strap, a little small, but that would just go straight through there like so. And that's what it would look like on the outside of your belt. So take your can, slide it in, and there's your finished product. There's a side view, and there's a bottom view. So you've got plenty here holding that. Nothing's going to fall out. Looks good. Practical. Quick and easy to put on your belt. Carry your ammo or your chew, whatever it is. And on the next video, we'll go ahead and take this all back apart, and I'll show you what I'm going to carve in here. All right, so I've got a nice finished product here. Holds my can perfectly. It's small. Has a nice belt loop on it, and we can flatten this out a little bit when we dye it. And that'll also be in the next video. But it holds the ammo perfectly. Nice and secure, not going anywhere. I love that leather sound. But yet, it's fastened with these Chicago screws so we can take it apart. Used 2 fasteners on this project. That's all I used. And 1 piece of leather. So there's a project you could do fairly quickly. This was all in real time, and very little fasteners, very little leather. You could do, again, for anything that is shaped like that, you could use this holster project for. So I appreciate you coming along. I appreciate you watching. And like I always say, please like, share, and subscribe. And make sure you come back next week for the second part. And I'll see you next time.